In recent times, combining 2D and 3D styles of animation has become really popular, and if you want to learn how you can make your 3D objects look like they're 2D, in this tutorial I will teach you how to do just that. Now, just before we start, I need to tell you that what I'm about to teach you works only in Eevee, so make sure that your render engine is set to Eevee, and now we can start. So, for the start, let's get rid of everything in our scene, and let's add a simple monkey head. Let's give this monkey head a smooth shading, and let's also add subdivision surface modifier, crank it up to 3 and apply it. Now that we have this good looking monkey head, let's give this monkey head a 2D looking texture. So, first what you need to do is this. Open this viewport in which we can see our textures. And now press this add button, and I want you to add this point light to our scene. And let's place this light, right in front of the monkey's face. Now, we need to see how this light is interacting with this monkey head. So to do that, let's press this button here and enable Scene Light and Scene World. This will enable us to see how the light in our scene is interacting with our objects. And now what you need to do next is this. Select this light, go here under data, and you need to disable this shadow on this light. I recommend you that whenever you are trying to make 2D textures, that you disable shadows on your light. I found it that textures look a lot better that way. Now what you need to do, simply increase the light's power from 10 to 100, and let's maybe move this light a tiny bit away from the monkey. And okay, with our light set up, we are ready to start texturing this monkey. So simply go into this shading viewport, enable Scene Light and Scene World here as well. And actually when we're here, let's also set up the colors for our world. Go here under World Properties and simply pick the color for your world. You don't need to use the exact same colors I'm using, just pick any color for the world that you like. Now, select this monkey head, and now press this new button to create new texture. Now guys, how do you actually make a 2D looking texture? Well, that is simple. Simply, let's put some distance between these two nodes, press add, and now type shader and select shader to RGB and place this shader here. Now this shader to RGB node is what it's going to perform 90% of the magic here. Everything around 2D textures is circling around this node here. Now, to actually give this monkey a proper texture, let's press add again, and now type color and select color ramp and place it here. Now switch this from linear to constant. And okay, as you can see, now our monkey looks a lot different. Now our monkey is black with this white spot. Now let me actually show you how this texture works. Let's select this light, go into the front view, and now let's press G to move this light. As you can see, as we are moving this light, this white spot is moving as well. Wherever this light is, this white spot is following it. So yeah, now this white spot is pretty big. So how can you control how big it is actually? Well guys, if you want to control the size of this white spot, you have three options. First, you can either move this light on the color ramp, and as you can see, as we are changing its position, we are changing its size on the monkey. You can also decrease or increase the strength of your light. As you can see, as I'm changing the power of this light, I am changing the scale of this white spot. And there is also a third way to control this, the size of this white spot. But before I actually show you how to use that third option, let me actually first show you how to give this monkey head a proper colors. Now first, select this black color, open it, and pick any color you like. I am going to choose this orange color, and you don't need to use the exact same colors I'm using, use any color that you like. Okay, now let's add some more details to this texture. To do this, press this plus button to add a new color. Now what you need to do next is this. Open this new color, and I want you to slightly decrease its saturation. Now to control how much this third color is going to occupy this object, you can simply play with its position on the color ramp until you have the right amount of color that you like. And now of course we can add more colors as well. Let's add a third color, slightly decrease saturation. Let's do a nice setup of colors on this monkey head. And now we are going to add one more color. This one last color is going to be for the shadows. Press this plus button, press this color, sorry. Now press the plus button, select this color, and now decrease the value here until we have a darker shade of orange. And now simply play with color ramp until we have the right amount of this dark orange color. And okay, now our monkey head is looking pretty decent, but I told you that there is a third way you can use to control how the colors on your object are set up. So let me show you really quickly how to do that. First, select this principal BSDF node and press Ctrl T. Delete this image texture, you won't need it. And now plug this vector of the mapping node into the principal BSDF. And now disconnect the UV from the mapping and reattach generated into the mapping. And okay, now our monkey is now looking a lot differently. So let me explain what is actually happening here. You see, this mapping node has location, rotation, and the scale settings. And you see guys, by changing these settings we can control how these colors are arranged on this monkey head. If I change the scale, if I increase this value, you can see that this monkey head is becoming brighter, and by decreasing it I'm making this monkey head darker. Now I'm going to pick this value here. I think this looks nice. And now I don't think that the back of the monkey's head should be this bright, so I'm also going to play with location and rotation values as well. I'm going to I'm going to change I'm going to play with their values. Okay, like this. Play with rotation. Okay. Okay, now this looks good. Maybe a tad too bright. Okay, and now of course, after you have set up your values on the mapping, you are also free to once again rearrange how these colors are set up on your color ramp. Okay, like this. Okay, this looks good. Now guys, there isn't right or wrong way to set up your mapping. Simply change these settings until you get the combination of colors that you like, and after you do that, simply change your values on the color ramp to bring certain colors out and certain colors in a bit. Basically what I'm trying to say, play with your mapping node until you get the position of colors that you like, and then play with mapping to give those colors a nice setup. I hope that makes sense. Okay guys, now this texture, it looks good. But what if I told you that there is a way you can use to add a little more life into this texture? To do that, go here under the render, scroll down under the color management and open this. Now switch this setting to standard and switch the look to medium contrast. Okay, and as you can see, by doing this we have already changed how these colors look. And now we have these gamma and exposure settings, which we can also use to bring the right look on our textures. Exposure is controlling how bright your scene is, and gamma controls how strong the colors on your scene are. Now every scene will have its own setup for color management, so just play with your exposure and gamma settings until you get something that you like. And also guys, I set the look to median point, but don't be afraid to change this contrast from medium point to very high contrast or to very low contrast. Just play with these settings around until you get the look that you are happy with. Okay, now with that out of the way, let me show you something new. Now, this entire monkey head is orange. Now, if you want your entire monkey head to be orange, then this is perfectly acceptable look. But what if you want to combine multiple colors on one object? Well, there are two ways to do that. I'm going to show you both of those ways right now. First, let's select this monkey head and go here at the materials. Let's press this plus button to create new texture. And now let's press this new button to create a new material. Select this first material, and what you need to do is this. Select this shader to RGB and the color ramp, press right click and copy them. Select this new material, and now let's bring these shaders we copied here, and simply plug this into this and plug this into this. Now we need to clean this color ramp. Let's get rid of all these colors except for this one and this one. Press this minus button to get rid of these colors. Okay, and now select this orange color and let's give it this blue color. Switch it to blue. Now what you need to do next is this. Return here and now go into the edit mode. Now open this shader and switch this to faces. Now press this to enable the X-ray mode. And now what you need to do is you need to carefully select one half of your monkey. Now that you did that, switch this back to this viewport here. Go here on the materials, select this new material you made and press assigned. Now let's go back into the object mode, and as you can see, now this half that we selected in edit mode is covered in this blue color, or should I say, it has this second texture we made. Now I think that this blue background is blending in a tiny bit too much with this blue texture, so I'm just going to quickly pick a different color. Okay, I'm going to pick this color here. Okay, like this. And now, since I changed the scene, I'm going to once again need to change these settings for the color management, since like I said, every scene requires its own unique setup for the color management. And okay, now that this scene looks good, now let's properly set up this blue texture. Go back into the shading, and now first let's add some new colors. First let's pick this lighter shade of blue, and let's change this value until it's matching this orange value here. Let's also play with this value here. Actually, come to think of it, this value should be a tiny bit smaller. Press this button plus to get new color. Let's get this new color in line with this hue on this orange texture. And now let's make this hue brighter, like this. And now let's add one more color, place it here, make this color darker. Okay. Let's set these colors up so that they are matching 1 to 1. And okay, now that all shades on both of these textures are matching 1 to 1, we have this decent looking monkey head. Now, we used edit mode to nicely cover this one half of the monkey in orange and to paint this other half in blue. And this method with edit mode is really useful if you want to have one straight line between your two colors. However, what if that is not what you want? What if the line between your two colors is supposed to be bended and smooth? Well, let me show you how to make colors that look like that. Well, let's actually paint this blue half of this monkey. We'll paint the orange one as well, but let's start with the blue one. First, select this color ramp and press Shift D to duplicate it. And now plug this factor into the shader to RGB and plug the color ramp into the material output. Now we need to give this second color ramp a new color. Select this color, open this value, and let's change the hue. Let's give this new color ramp this green color. Now it's important that our saturation values and our brightness value always remains the same. So I recommend you that on this second color ramp you only change this hue value. That will allow you to nicely change the color of your color ramp without messing up any other values. Now this green color has the hue value of 0.329, so I'm going to select this color, set the hue value to 0.329. I'm going to select this color, do this as well. I'm going to do the same thing here. And okay, now we painted this other half of monkey green. Now what you need to do next, let's type mix and select mix color and place it here. Now plug this color of this blue color ramp into the B value here. And okay. Now, how are we going to tell Blender what parts of this half we want to be blue and what parts we want to be green? Well, to do that, simply disconnect this mix from material output, and let's move all 4 of these nodes up here and simply plug principal BSDF into the material output. Now go under Add, Texture, and let's add Image Texture and place it here. Plug this into the base color and press this new button. Let's name this texture. I'm going to name this green color. Leave this color at pitch black and press OK. Alright, now that we set up this image texture, now we need to set up the UV map on this monkey head. To do that, go here under UV editing, press A to select all your faces, and now press UV, select Smart UV Project and increase this value from 0 to 0.01 and press OK. I found that UV map is done a lot better when you set this value to 0.01. Alright, now what you need to do next is this. Go here under Texture Paint, select your brush, make sure that the color is set to pure white, and now just paint. Wherever you want your monkey to be green, just paint. Now I'm going to paint this eye, okay, like this. I'm going to paint this ear, and I'm going to make a few drawings on the rest of the monkey's surface. I'll draw this poorly made star. I'll do this dot here. I'll add this spot here, and I'll paint his cheek as well. Now go back into the shading, disconnect this image texture from the base color, bring all 4 of these nodes back, and simply reconnect mix color into the material output. Now bring this image texture here and plug the color into the factor of mix color. And okay, as you can see, now all these areas that we painted white now have their unique color. Now guys, if you want your colors to be flipped, just disconnect these color ramps from the mix color and reconnect them in the opposite way. Like for example, if you want your monkey head to be blue with green spots, simply plug blue color ramp into an A color and plug the green color ramp into the B color. If you want your monkey head to be green with blue spots, simply do the opposite setup. Okay, now we did a setup on this blue half. Now let's quickly do the same thing on this other half, this orange half as well. Let's do some rearrangements. I'm going to quickly add image texture like this. New. I'm going to name this purple. I'll make this half purple. Okay. Now let's do some more painting. Paint anything you like. Okay. Now with this, disconnect this. Reconnect this. Reconnect this. Add a new color ramp. Reconnect this here. Now let's get mix color. Plug this here. Okay, plug this here. And now let's quickly just change the values on this color ramp. Let's change the hue. Okay, let's change the hue value to 0.828 to give it this purplish look. 0.828, 0.828, and last but not least 0.828. Okay, and as you can see, this monkey head is orange with purple or pinkish spots all over it. Okay guys, now this is a very cool method you can use to give your object a 2D looking texture. However, something is still missing. And do you know what that something is? Well, I have one word: outlines. Outlines are the one thing this object is still missing. Now, there are 3 ways you can use to make an outlines, and I will show you all 3 of them. Now, the first way is this. Go here on the materials, press this plus button to create new material, press this press this new button, switch the surface from principled BSDF to emission, and switch the color to black. Now, enable backface scrolling under the settings of this texture, and under shadow mode set this to none. Now go under modifiers, press add modifier, and let's add solidify modifier. Switch offset to 1. Let's give this monkey head a little thickness. Now open normal, enable flip, open materials, and now set this material offset from 0 to 1. And okay, as you can see, this now looks different, but it doesn't look good. Now guys, let me just quickly explain you something. Now usually when you want to add outlines with solidify modifier, now most of the time people only have 2 materials on that object. One that is for the object and one material that is for the outlines. But in this case we have 3 materials. So if you have 2 materials, you can set material offset to 1 and it will work properly. However, if you have 3 materials, like I do, you need to set material offset to 2, and as you can see, now this looks good. Now let's just decrease this thickness to make these outlines look good. And okay, now we added some interesting outlines to this object. Now guys, adding outlines with solidify modifier is probably the easiest way to do them. However, it's also the least accurate way, since this modifier may not work properly if your object has a very specific or unique shape. So, let me actually show you 2 more ways you can use to add an outlines. First, select this object, press Shift D to duplicate it, place this object here. And now let's get rid of solidify modifier on this monkey head. And now, in order for these added methods to work, you will need to add a camera to your scene. So simply, add a camera, open it, let's go to viewer, camera to view, and now position your camera so that it looks at this monkey head. Now, to use this second method, open render and scroll here under this freestyle. And what freestyle will do is it will basically add an outlines when you render your animation or an image. Now let me show you how this looks by quickly rendering this image. Okay, now if you look carefully at this monkey head, you can see that freestyle added an outlines to this monkey head. However, these outlines are very thin. So to control how thick they are, open this freestyle, and here we have line thickness. Line thickness does exactly what it sounds like. It lets you to control how thick your outlines are. Now let's increase this from 1 to 2.5. And now let's render this one more time. Let's see how this looks. And okay, these outlines now look a lot better. Now, this is a second way you can add an outlines to your scene. However, this method is probably least favorite in my opinion, because simply you will always need to render your images to see how this looks. So, I am going to show you the third and most accurate way you can use to add an outlines to your object. So let's disable freestyle. Now, to use this third method, select your monkey head, press Shift S, select cursor to selected, and now with your monkey head selected, go to Add, go to Grease Pencil, and select Object to Line Art. Now, as you can see, we got something here, but this looks a little weird. Now, don't be afraid if it does. You see guys, this method of adding outlines works only if you're looking at your object through your camera. As you can see, I'm looking at this object through the camera right now, and now these outlines look just fine. However, if I look at them from the outside of the camera view, you can see that this looks weird. But that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that these outlines look good when we are looking at them through the camera. Now, the grease pencil method of adding outlines is probably the most useful in my opinion, because grease pencil gives you some options that the other two methods I mentioned don't. For example, this grease pencil, these outlines are basically their own separate object, and because of that they have their own specific settings. If I select these outlines, I can go here under the modifiers, and here I can alter how they look. I have line thickness. This does exactly what it sounds like. It controls you how thick these outlines are. Now, if you don't want your outlines to stick so closely to the surface of your mesh, you can press Add Modifier, and you can select Noise Modifier, and by changing the noise scale, as you can see, we get this very wobbly, very unique take for the outlines. Now, here with position you can control how strong this noise is going to be, and this noise is overall a really useful tool that you can use to get this unique shape for the outlines. Now, I don't like how this looks, so I'm just going to get rid of this. And now, under materials, these outlines of course have their own material, which, just like any other material, you can alter. However guys, what if I showed you that you can make a very unique outlines with grease pencil? Now let me show you what I exactly mean by that. To show you how to make your outlines look more unique, press Add, and let's add a plane to our scene and place it somewhere around here. Go here under shading, and now let's press this new button here. Now let's add texture. Let's add image texture, place it here. Plug this here, press this new button. Let's name this outlines. Okay. And now under colors, I want you to decrease alpha all the way to 0. And now just press OK. Now go here under the texture paint. Let's scroll up this window so that we can paint on this entire texture. And now let's increase radius from 50 to 75. Now go here under texture. Let's press new to add new texture. Let's switch this type from image to cloud. And now let's play with these settings. Let's increase these settings and increase the depth. Now let's open color, enable color ramp, and now let's set up the colors on this image. Select this this white color, sorry, and let's give it this red look. Okay, now let's slightly decrease. Actually, now leave the size untouched. Instead of touching the size, let's move this value here. Now let's move this value here. Okay, like this. Now open clouds and let's change settings. Okay, like this, until we have this really noisy pattern. Just add settings like this. Now increase the radius size even more. And now I want you to simply just paint on this image. After you painted this image, go here under image, select save as, and let's save these images. And now let's return here under the layout. Now select this grease pencil outlines, select this material, and under this surface stroke settings of this material, switch this style from solid to texture, press open, and now let's just select the texture we just made. And as you can see, our outlines now look differently. Let's increase the line thickness. And as you can see, maybe not so much. And as you can see, these outlines are now unique. If I zoom into this monkey head, you can see that these outlines now have the texture we drew with this image texture here. And in my opinion, this is a really useful tool, since this allows you to get some very unique looks for your outlines. And of course, if you're not happy with how these outlines look, you can always simply select your image, return to texture paint. You can alter how this looks. For example, I'm going to slightly remove these colors. Okay, like this, till I get a pattern like this. Now I'm just going to quickly repaint this. Okay, let's maybe increase the scale. Or should I say decrease it? Sorry. Let's paint with this a tiny bit. Okay, now let's take a look at these outlines. Okay, these outlines now look a lot better. Now, like I said, this trick with grease pencil is just another interesting way you can add some more unique outlines to your scene. Alright guys, I showed you how to give your objects 2D looking textures, and I also showed you how to give your objects a pretty decent outlines. However, now I'm going to show you how to make an interesting color patterns on your 2D looking objects. Now to do that, let's first select this monkey head and let's duplicate it with Shift D and move this here. And let's delete the outlines for this monkey head here. Whoops, only outlines, not the monkey head. Now, to show you how to get some interesting patterns of colors on your object, first let's actually get rid of all of these materials. We will start from scratch. So just press this minus button to remove all the textures. And now press this new button to add new unique texture. Go here under shading. Okay, like this. And now, standard procedure. Let's add shader to RGB, place it here. Let's add a color ramp, place it here. Switch this to constant. And now just nicely set up a colors on your color ramp. Now I'm going to set these colors up to be green, and I recommend you to also make this monkey head green and I'll explain why in a second. Okay, just let's add a few interesting color patterns. Okay, and now let's add one color for the shadow. Okay, now that we have a color pattern like this, let me show you how to add a cool looking pattern to this texture. First, what you need to do is this. Press add and now type gradient and select gradient texture and plug the color into the base color. Now what you need to do next is this. Let's go under textures and let's add Voronoi texture, place it here. And now let's add a mix color, place it here. Plug this into this. Okay, and what you need to do next is this. Let's increase this scale to some really high value, something like 200. And okay, you can also switch this to 4D. And okay, as you can see, now we have this really interesting, this really noisy look for our texture. And now the reason why I told you that I recommend you to use green color for this monkey head is because I think that this texture can be really useful if you want to make something like a grass or some other plant-based material like a bunch of leaves or something like that. Now, if you want to make this texture even more detailed, select Voronoi texture, press Ctrl T, and you can increase the scale, increase it to something like a 5. And as you can see, the higher we set up this scale, the more detail this texture gets. And I also recommend you to plug the mapping into this gradient texture here. And okay, now we have this really cool and really interesting texture for our monkey. Now, this is one pattern of colors you can make. Now, let me show you a few more. Let's duplicate this monkey head and let's go to shading. Press this number 2 to duplicate this texture. And now let's get rid of all these nodes. And now let's pick a new color for this monkey. I'm going to make this monkey blue. Let's change the hue to value 0.612. Do the same thing here. And here. And here. Okay. Okay, this looks good. Now, I'm going to show you how you can make your object look like it's water painted. To do that, this is what you need to do. Simply go under Add, and first under Textures, add a Voronoi texture. And now what you need to do is plug position into the normal and switch this from 3D to 4D. Now let's add a mix color, plug the result into the vector, and you need to switch this mix setting to linear light. Now let's add geometry, place it here, plug the normal into this A value, and what you need to do next is this. Let's add a noise texture and place it here and plug the color into this B setting here. And as you can see, now we already have a cool looking pattern of colors on this monkey head that makes these colors look really noisy, really messy, just like they were if they were painted with brush. And now guys, at this point, I really encourage you to play along, to play with these different settings just to see what kinds of results you are going to get. For example, if I increase the details to 15 and if I increase this roughness to 1, you can see that now I have this a lot, how should I say, a lot wetter look for this monkey head. You can see this is another interesting pattern you can use if you want to make your monkey head look like it's painted. And another trick you can use is you can switch the values from this color ramp. You can switch this from constant to B-spline. And now, as you can see, these different shades on this monkey head, they are no longer so separated. Now they are blending into one another, just like they would if they were painted with the water paint. And now, since we did change this from constant to B-spline, we will need to change the setup of the colors on this color ramp. So simply just change the position of colors, okay, until you get a nice setup of colors that you're happy with. And okay, I'm happy with this setup here. So this was just one interesting trick you can use to make your object look like it's painted. And now let me show you one more trick. Let me show you how you can use these textures to make your object look like it's drawn with the pencil. Well, first, under the shaders, let's press this 2 button to duplicate this texture. Let's delete all these nodes. Switch this back to constant. And let's get rid of all these colors except this one and the white one. Now, if this object was drawn with the pencil, it would only have white, black and gray colors on it. So let's make this color black. Let's add a new color. Let's make this new color gray. Now let's add a new color. Give it a slightly lighter shade of gray. Now let's add one more color. Give it slightly lighter shade of gray. And okay. Now, how do you make this object look like it is drawn with the pencil? Well, to do that, let's go here. And let's add Musgrave texture. And simply plug it here. Okay. Now, what you need to do next is this. Let's increase this scale on this Musgrave texture. Let's increase the details. And let's decrease dimensions to 0. And as you can see, this already looks... it does look more like it is drawn with the pencil, but there is still some room for improvement. To improve this, let's add a color ramp. Plug it here. And now let's change the values here. Okay, like this. And now, as you can see, now we have this cool looking pattern of colors on this monkey. That makes this monkey look like it is drawn with the pencil. Now, of course, we can always tweak the settings, change them. We can always change the settings a bit to get different results. However, let me show you one more way that will make this object look like it is drawn with the pencil, but in a different way. To do that, let's disconnect this color ramp from the base color and move this here. Now, let's add a mix color, plug this here, and now plug the color into this B setting here. And now, as you can see, this new color pattern is on this entire monkey head, and if you feel like it is a tiny bit too strong, you can simply change this factor value to control how strong this effect is going to be. And now, of course, last but not least, if this object really was drawn with the pencil, these different shades of color, they wouldn't be so separated, they would be blending into one another. So to do that, just switch this from constant to B-spline. And as you can see, now we have this new look. Now let's slightly rearrange how these colors are set up on the color ramp. And okay, now we have this cool monkey head that looks like it is drawn with the pencil. Alright guys, I showed you how to make 2D looking textures, I showed you how to make an outlines, and I showed you how to make a nice color patterns on your objects. However guys, there is one last trick I want to show you in this tutorial. Let's move this monkey head to the side and let's bring the OG monkey head here at the center. Okay, let's make sure it's nicely positioned. And now I'm going to show you how you can enhance this 2D look with the composting. But before we actually set up the composting, I recommend you that you add some more interesting world. To do that, go to shading, switch this from object to world, to add this world settings, this world texture. And now this is how we are going to add an interesting world. Simply add a gradient texture, plug the color here. Okay. Now let's take a look at this through the camera. Select this gradient texture, press Ctrl T. Okay. And now let's play with the rotation. Not this, okay, this one. Rotate this at the 90-degree angle. And let's lower this, let's play with this location a tiny bit as well. Okay, like this. Now, let's add a color ramp. Place this color ramp here. And now add some interesting colors. I'm going to add this orange color. I'm going to switch this into the light blue color. I'm going to press the plus button to add a new color, and I'm going to switch it to green. Okay. Okay, like this. Now, let's play with the location on the mapping. Like this. Let's slightly rearrange how these colors are set up. Okay. And now to make this look even better, let's move this here. Now let's add a mix color, place it here. Make sure that this B color is pure white. Now under texture, add a Voronoi texture, place it here. Plug the distance into the factor. Okay. Now add a color ramp, place it here. Switch this from linear to constant. Okay. Now let's switch the position of this black and white color to get these white spots. Okay. Select your Voronoi texture. Press Ctrl T to add mapping. And now let's increase the scale to add more of these dots. Okay guys, now that we have this interesting world, let me show you how you can use composting to make this scene look even more 2D. Now, the reason why I wanted you to set up this interesting texture for the world is because I found that this composting method is the most effective with the cool looking world. Okay, now to correctly set up the composting, go here and select Use Nodes. Now go here under the layer and let's simply render your image. Alright, now that your image is rendered, return to the composting. Now what you need to do next is this. Press Add and type Viewer and add a viewer. Plug this image into this render layout and now press V to scale this image down. Now, how do we actually use composting to make this look 2D? Well, to do that, you have two options. You can go under Add, type Posterizer, add Posterizer here. And Posterizer will make your image look more 2D. Here we have this steps value. Simply play with this value until you get the look that you like. And now you can also, if you want to, you can add brightness contrast node, place it here, and you can also play with this brightness and contrast settings to get the look that you like. Okay, simply play with these three settings on brightness and on the posterizer until you get an image that you like. And this can be a nice touch that will make your object look even more 2D. Now, this is one option you have with composting, but there is also one more trick you can use that will make your image look like it's painted. Let's disconnect these two nodes, we don't need them anymore. And now, to make your image look painted, go here under the filter and add this cube. Sorry guys, I have no idea how to pronounce this, but add this filter that starts with the letter K. And guys, just one tiny thing you need to know. This node will drastically increase the amount of time your images will need to compost. So hate to break it to you, but if you are going to use this node, you are going to need to be a little patient. Now first, this node has these size settings, and the higher this setting is, the stronger this effect is going to be. Let's switch this at 12, increase this size to 12. Let's wait for it to finish composting. And okay, now by increasing this size to 12, we made this image look painted. Now we can increase this even further to 20. And as you can see, increasing this size made this effect even stronger. And now guys, if you want to have a little more control over how this looks, you can switch this classic setting. And here we have these three new options. First we have this uniformity. This effect will control how much your image is posterized. Now I play with this setting the least. Now the settings I usually use the most are this sharpness and this setting here. Now sharpness will basically control how blurry your image is going to be. If I change this value to something like 0.1, okay, and as you can see, changing this setting to 0.1 has made this entire image really blurry. Now guys, one problem with blurry images is that you can lose some of your thinner details. Now to fix that, to make sure those thinner details don't get lost, you have this setting here. The lower you set this setting, the less details you are going to lose. Let's switch this to something like 0.25. And okay, now as you can see, this image is still pretty blurry. However, now these thinner details, like the outlines on this monkey head, they are no longer so blurry that you can't see them. And also guys, this can also add some very cool effects if you play with this setting. Now let's actually increase this setting to the maximum. Let's increase this setting to 2. And okay, now let's take a look at this image. And as you can see, now this image is a lot noisier. This white spot we added to this background, they're no longer dots all around the background. Now their white color is slightly blending into their sides. And this can be really cool effect that can help you a lot if you want to add a really blurry and really noisy image. And okay guys, I showed you how to make textures, I showed you how you can use composting to make 2D looking effect, but for the composting there are still two things you need to know. First, if you want your composting effect to be visible in the final render, don't forget that you need to plug this node into the compositor as well. Otherwise, all effects in the composting will be completely invisible in the final render. And if you also want to see how your compositor looks even while you work, you can simply return here under the viewport and you can open shading, and here we have the compositor. Disabled means that you can't see anything in the viewport, always. Always means that you can always see the effect of the compositor in the viewport. And the camera. Camera means that you can't see the effect of compositor in your viewport, but only when you are looking at your scene through the camera. And okay, these have been a few tricks you can use with the compositor to make your image look more 2D. And with that guys, we reached the end of this tutorial. I hope you learned something new and interesting, and that you are going to put the knowledge I gave you to good use. If you have any suggestions on what tutorials I should make in the future, leave your suggestions in the comments down below, and until then, have a wonderful day. Bye guys!